This is your tech news briefing for Friday, December 2nd. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. More TV viewers, especially younger ones, are using closed captions. And not necessarily because they're hard of hearing. It's just that the audio often sounds muddled. But shouldn't the audio technology in our TVs improve how shows sound? Or at least let us understand what the actors are saying? Joining us to discuss what's going on here and how you can have a better TV listening experience is WSJ personal tech reporting assistant Cordilia James. Hi, Cordilia. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Zoe. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to understand what is happening here. I mean, a lot of us have been told that the reason we can't hear our TVs well is because of the speakers. Is it just that simple?
It is not, actually. So even though there is a good reason why people do say that it's because of their speakers, as TVs have advanced a lot more, they've gotten tinier, thinner. The speakers are usually either towards the back or facing downwards, which is directing the sound anywhere but towards you. However, there's actually other reasons, from production issues to just how the sound will actually be compressed into your device, depending on whatever it is that you're watching something on.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those issues. I mean, when it comes to the technology that's playing out the sound, the dialogue in your television, what's changed here?
So the good news is that technology that comes with sound mixing has just gotten so much more advanced. So sound mixers, those that kind of combine everything that you hear in a movie, TV show, the dialogue, the music, the sound effects, everything, they have a lot more room to play around with combining all of those sounds. However, when it comes to the more channels you have, the more the high quality systems that you're mixing something for, that gets compressed so that way it can also be played on smaller sets, such as stereo speakers or mono speakers. That's 2 or 1 speakers, respectively. And so when you have so much coming out of such a little bit of sound, what you often have is overlap, which makes things a lot harder to hear, a little bit more muddled, because there's not many places for that sound to go.
Okay, so we've got all this sound playing out at once, and I guess we have maybe more sounds in our TV and movies than we maybe did a few years ago or, decades ago. But how are sound engineers working in TV approaching this?
So the hard part about it is that, based on what I heard from the sound engineers I spoke to, is that they don't necessarily have that much of a creative say in the way that sound will ultimately appear in the film or movie that they're working on. That's often up to the director, who will be like, oh, well, we actually want to make this sound even larger than life. So what often happens is, even though sound engineers are saying, hey, there's all these explosions happening, the dialogue isn't necessarily at the forefront of this, the director's like, hey, well, if you were an actual explosion, you probably wouldn't be able to hear the person next to you anyway.
I mean, it does often feel difficult when you're watching, an action scene to hear what people are saying in particular, but we are trying to follow the story, to hear what's going on. So is there a way that people can improve their sound if they want to be listening at home?
Yeah, there are so many different ways or different things that you can try. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that it'll sound a lot better. Number one, I guess the most cheapest option that you can do is just look at your setup. If you have a TV that has backward-facing speakers and you're hanging up on your wall, then of course that sound's going to get a little bit muffled. So it might be easier for you to either set that TV on a surface that isn't covered by anything that would absorb the sound immediately, like a wooden TV stand or something, as well as, depending on your room size, there are different ways that you can try to reorient your furniture, maybe give yourself some carpeted floors or some dense curtains that will help absorb the sound on that wider scale, so it keeps it contained within your room.
Okay, so rearrange the furniture. What else can you do?
Yeah, so other things you can do, the most practical way, and sometimes the most expensive, is to get a sound bar. The experts that I spoke to had recommended to at least have 3 channels, so that way that center channel will give you the dialogue, and that helps all of the other distractions kind of stay off to the side. Also, a bunch of new TVs have different audio settings. In your TV's menu, you can adjust some of those audio settings. Doesn't necessarily guarantee that it'll work all the time, because ultimately what those TVs are doing are trying to guess which parts are the speaking parts versus which parts are all of the other stuff. And if they mix that up, then you might end up still finding yourself having to readjust the volume every once in a while.
I mean, what if when I'm watching TV, I can hear it, but the people I'm watching with are having trouble with some muddled sound?
Yeah, fortunately, there are different earbuds that you can use. So, for example, with AirPods, you can link up to 2 pairs of AirPods to your Apple TV, as well as there are some accessibility features that allow you to use your phone. You put it next to your TV, and then you can put in your earbuds. So that way, the phone kind of acts as this amplifier to help you hear some of the sound a little bit better.
Cordelia, while I've got you here, I want to ask about a slightly different but related trend. A lot more young people, particularly people under 40, are using closed captions, not just to aid in hearing what's going on in a show. Can you tell us a bit more about why this trend took off?
Yeah, so when it comes to closed captions, they're just a lot more popular now than they were in the past, especially among young viewers. Oftentimes it's because it allows you to multitask a lot more. So if you're on the move, for example, or if you're trying to watch something in a space where there are other people, you don't necessarily want to disrupt them or things, it's a lot easier for you to watch it with closed captions. It also just helps you understand the audio a lot better, especially now that people are getting a lot more creative with their closed captions.
Cordilia James, reporting assistant for the WSJ's personal tech team. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks again.
And that's it for Tech News Briefing this week. Our producer is Julie Chang. Our executive producer is Chris Sinsley. And I'm your host, Zoe Thomas. Thanks for listening and have a great weekend.